Hey everybody, Josh Sheridan here with the Barely Legal Podcast.
They demand my alter ego, but I won't go.
On today's show, we have Walter Lopez. Walter is one of the local elite tattoo artists. He previously worked for Red Letter One. Is that on Azeel? What's that?
On Platt.
Platt.
Yeah.
Which is one of the higher end tattoo places. And as of this summer, he's gone out on his own. He has a shop right there next to Dats, kind of close to Dats on MacDill. I've had the pleasure of visiting him and seeing his work and actually wearing a piece of his work. He is very talented, not just in his art form, but he's a very highly intelligent and intellectual gentleman as well. So the talk during the service is pretty great too. Where are you from originally?
Thank you. You're too kind. I'm from South Florida.
Okay.
My family is from Honduras. So both my mom and my dad are from Honduras.
All right.
My mom was able to come here right before I was born. She was about 7 months pregnant. So I was able to be born here.
Now, my knowledge of Honduras is sketchy at best. I know that there were probably some issues there in the 70s and 80s. Does that sound about right?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I am very American.
Okay. All right. I just remember that coming up around the Jimmy Carter, Reagan era as kind of an issue of concern at some point. I don't know if there was a change in government or if there were hostages or what the situation was.
You know, my mom, first, my dad died when I was 12, so I don't remember much about him. But my mom, she's, still in my life. She doesn't really talk about much about her history or her country.
Right.
Really. Luckily, we were able to come over here. She was able to come over here because my uncle was able to get a scholarship to the University of Florida.
Okay.
And he requested all of his brothers and sisters to come over.
That's pretty amazing.
That's about it. Yeah, no, she doesn't talk about her upbringing. I know they were orphans, but that's about it.
What about you? Siblings?
One sibling, one half sister.
Is she around here? Or?
No, in Utah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was raised Mormon.
Really?
I'm the black sheep of my family. Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
A Honduran Mormon from South Florida.
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds like a Thomas Wolfe book or something. That's interesting. So what age were you when you broke away from the Mormon faith?
I started skateboarding and I got into graffiti.
Okay.
And just never really looked back since then. I started questioning everything, schooling.
Right.
Started questioning life, started questioning my own beliefs and morals. And I was like.
So early teen, preteen?
17.
17. Okay.
Yeah. Pretty late, I would say.
How old are you?
29.
Okay. So we're looking at 15 years ago, give or take?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever go out to Oklahoma City or do any of that stuff?
No, I would go down to Miami. We'd go skateboarding down.
No, I meant for the Mormon.
Oh, no.
The Mormon stuff.
No, all South Florida. Just raised South Florida.
Is there a big Mormon contingent in South Florida?
No. They just have churches everywhere. Okay. Literally everywhere.
Now I have a cousin who married into the Mormon church, and we weren't allowed to go to the wedding ceremony.
Yeah, the temple. Yeah.
And they had a son who was very ill with cancer, and I think there were some prohibitions on the type of medicine that they could use.
That would be interesting. I know the marriage part. The marriage part sounds normal. I don't remember there being any prohibition on.
I could be wrong about that.
Unless it's a very specific sect of Mormonism, right?
I do remember they had to wear special garments when they got married.
Yes, they still do that. Yeah.
Interesting. So has that created a divide between you and your family, or is everybody kind of cool about it? So
I was pretty much a nerd coming up in school, and so I was a good kid. Did whatever the church wanted, and my family wanted, my mom wanted, and at 18, right when I turned 18, I got my first tattoo.
Okay.
And my mom saw it the third day and freaked out.
What was it?
It's a spray can on my chest.
Was it like a graphic from a skateboard?
No.
New Deal or Think?
I just told the tattoo artist, I'm 18. I want a tattoo. I was still doing graffiti at the time. And
I hear they're addictive.
Yeah, very. I got my head tattooed for people who can't see, and my face.
Yeah, they'll see. We're going to take a picture before you leave.
And then, so since then, I left home. And I never came back. So,
are you in communication at all with them, or?
I do now, but
Okay.
it was like, I would say a year of not talking to my mom, of trying to figure out life, of being homeless even.
Really?
So, yeah.
Was that in South Florida or was that up here?
South Florida. No, I
Okay.
moved here about 3 years ago.
How long were you homeless for?
Couple months.
How was that?
Not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was living with a friend. I would just, I don't know. I guess you'd call it like couch hopping now.
Sure.
And my aunt, a friend, another friend, and then I found some stability, going to school and living with on my friend's couch. And it was only until after, let's say, that I really became homeless, because I found myself living with my girlfriend after I left home
Right.
pretty quickly, where I wasn't very, very homeless.
Sure.
It was just like I didn't have my own
I don't have a home.
spot.
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
And then me and my girlfriend broke up after maybe 2-3 years, and that was the real.
That was
at the time I was
the
just
cliff.
Yes.
Yeah.
tattooing for a year, and so what I would do, I would sleep on the couch at the tattoo shop. In the morning, I would go to the gym, shower at the gym, and then just come home at the time,
Right.
the shop and work. And just
Well, there's a couple ways that I feel like you could experience that or look at it. I mean, one part of it is, it's kind of scary not having a place to call your home. But the other part is it seems like it would be somewhat liberating to have very little in the way of what you have to financially maintain. Your monthly nut's pretty low if you don't have a home and electricity. And
Yes.
all this. I mean, you got to feed yourself. If you have a car, get some gas in the car. And
it was simple,
Yeah.
but now that I'm able to reflect on it, and it's only after when I sit down and I think about everything, I'm like, that was actually kind of scary
yeah.
because I got out of it.
Oh, well, most scary things are not as scary at the time as
Right.
they are in hindsight.
Oh, totally.
I was watching a documentary a couple nights ago on the Pixies, and the lead singer, Frank Black, was talking about being homeless in Boston and how he almost did it intentionally. Like his lease ran out and he didn't have another place that he was going to move into for like 3 or 4 months. So he just kind of figured it out. And, he kind of reflected on it in a bittersweet fashion. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times type of situation.
It was a lot of partying, a lot of going out, coming
Right.
home or whatever, coming back to the studio to sleep whenever I wanted, and it was liberating. And I think it was also
An education, maybe. in
good
some ways.
lesson,
Yeah.
great lesson that you can live through a lot.
Yeah, you're more resilient than you think that you might be.
right.
Or at least generally that's how it works out. I might touch on later an example I got of kind of the flip side of that coin. But so was art always a part of your life, or is that something that came in? Now, as a little Mormon kid, what you have access to, so what might be in your focus or your...
It wasn't like Amish.
Okay.
It was just stricter. My mom focused a lot. Because of where they came from, they focused a lot on school, making sure I got good grades and all that stuff. But no,
You're definitely a super bright guy. I mean,
maybe I hope so.
Not too many people are rattling off about the singularity and future ability and what course correction and
that's probably what I want to do next with my life, because like you said before, working at Red Letter One, I got to work with the best of the best, and those dudes are the best of the best. So when I was working there, I can see that I was 27, and I was working with the best of the best. Like literally in the nation, Red Letter One is probably top 3 tattoo studios in the nation.
That's crazy. There's a lot.
For me, being able to process that information and see myself 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I knew that I'd be the top of my game early on in my life. So I had a bit of an existential crisis where it's like, okay, I need something new.
There's a lot of time left, yeah.
Yeah, yes. I don't want to just tattoo till I die. So I started getting really interested in artificial intelligence, in computation, and that's probably what I'm going to do next with my life.
I want to spend a lot of time talking on that, but I want to. We're still in little Walter territory. We haven't.
So back to childhood.
So art, childhood. So, in kind of my reflection on art as a kid, obviously comic books played a big part.
Not for me. No.
Music. I remember Pusshead from Metallica, and then is it Is it Robert Williams who did the Guns N' Roses, like the machine jumping over the fence with the teeth out and the woman and all that? So album art was a big one for me. Concert posters were a big one for me. Skateboard decks were a big one for me. These were all kind of...
Mine was Pokemon. Used to draw my own Pokemon.
But you're a lot younger than I am, so...
Yeah. Hey, but here's something funny too. Being a tattoo artist, I don't know dick about music.
Well, it's interesting because if I look at you, I can assume certain things about what your tastes might be. And for instance, today during our session, you put on, and it was an EDM show in France.
Yes, yeah.
What was the name of it? I saw
Boris Brejcha.
Boris Brejcha, and it said Cocaine Cowboys on there.
Yeah.
It looked like a
real fucking serious.
It looked pretty crazy though. It looked like a good time, but that's kind of outside of my knowledge base. So, but that's awesome. You're an exercise in opposition. That's okay. Yeah,
talking about music. It's actually funny. When I first moved to Tampa, I didn't know anyone. I just knew where I was going to come work, and it was my first time.
Was it Red Letter One that brought you here?
Yeah, they offered me a job when I was down in South Florida, and I didn't really do anything. I have anywhere to go or any friends because I didn't know anyone. And one of the owners said, "Yeah, do you want to go to an Iron Maiden concert here in Tampa?" And I said, "Who's that?"
Yeah,
and that was like a big deal for them because. Yeah, growing up Mormon, I was not. I think also growing up without a father figure, usually it's your dad who introduces you to like Black Sabbath, Pantera,
right?
That kind of music. I didn't have that,
right?
So,
but you know what? That's awesome too. Let's see what happens to this kid who's a blank slate. Like, what's he going to find his way into? You know, I think that's cool. Like, I'm stoked the path that I found myself on, and I didn't have an older brother, and it definitely wasn't my dad. My dad was like Bob Dylan and Pete Seeger and like, hippie, folky type of music. But, no, I think there's something to be said for the path that you went on because it's really organic. It's really you finding your own way.
Yeah, I do. I can reflect on that now that I'm not really tied to anything. Like I'm not tied to my heritage. I'm not tied to a sports team or any kind of specific kind of music. So proudly I can say I am myself and still discovering it.
And not that this would be the case with your family, but also I think a certain type of masculinity that a lot of men are tied to comes from their father, their brother, their environment. It's always interesting to me. I bring this up on occasion is, being a larger gentleman, people assume I want to talk to them about football and I don't know shit about football, and people are talking about their fantasy football. And during the fall, everybody's on social media talking about the Gators and I just check out. I was like, I don't know any of that shit, what's going on. But that's one of the things that I appreciated about my father is, he didn't have any of that in him. He never once commented on a woman, like made any comment about a woman. He couldn't tell you about any sports team. He wasn't a macho guy. He wasn't a violent guy. And so that allowed me to flourish in other areas than what a lot of my colleagues were focusing on, which was football, lifting weights, being a bro. And so I feel lucky that I kind of circumvented that. So you said Pokemon was one of the things that was in your life at an early age regarding art. Did you have like kind of an Asian flair? Were you into anime and all that kind of?
I was into not a lot of anime. Specifically, I liked Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Gundams. Okay. I still to this day.
Gundams are the big old like Robotech machines, right?
The Japanese robots. Yeah. The mechs.
Yeah.
And I would just draw my own. Like I would tell my cousins like, hey, let's make up our own Pokemon, draw them, and we'll send them in and we'll get paid because we're going to design our own Pokemon or whatever. And funny enough, some of not that they got made, like, because I didn't really submit them, but some of the ideas that I did draw ended up becoming actual Pokemon.
Did they acknowledge that for you?
No. Okay. It was just a funny thing. I imagined, for example, there's this one Pokemon called Eevee, and I imagined there would be an ice version, even though it was like years before they ever came out with an ice version of that. Sure. But I had drawn it already when I was like 7.
Well, there you go. You got there first.
In a way, yeah.
You planted your flag before they ever got there. Yeah. What else? What else besides that stuff? Were Were you drawing? Were you?
Yeah, but it was never like a career thing. No, I wanted to be an engineer. I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be like MIT.
Okay.
You know, that kind of stuff.
Got pretty good grades, I imagine.
Yes. Yeah. I graduated with a 4.6 GPA. Yeah. I went to like, AP classes. I was in the IB magnet program in high school. I was a nerd. Debate team. I have nightmares about it, actually.
Really? The stress of it?
No, the opposite of I knew I could have done more, but I didn't because I'm lazy. Like, at least, some...
You're on the path you're supposed to be on.
Yes. It ended up well. It ended up turning well, but it's just like one of those things where it's like, okay, I look at tattooing or I look at this new endeavor about learning about computation, and it's like, okay, I'm not going to do the same mistakes that I did in school where I just barely, did the minimum to get my good grades.
Right.
I got
You're actually going to put your full weight into it. So after did you drop out of high school or finish high school?
No, I finished high school.
Okay. Yeah. Did you do any college?
I did. I did some. I did maybe like 3 semesters, and then
where'd you go?
I did community college.
Okay.
And then I did. Yeah. No, that's all I did.
So what happened when you got out of college?
Well, no offense to anyone who did go to college, but I figured out that it was bullshit.
Yeah.
That it was just a way to make money. Like this, and it was no one's fault. I wasn't blaming like capitalism. I wasn't blaming older folks. No, it was just an institution or just a system that is over time has been built to extract wealth out of people who don't even have money yet.
Right.
Right. So
indenture them.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
So I realized that when my professor required a book that we never even opened, that was about $230.
Right.
They shuffled around a couple of pages, called it a new edition, and would only give me $40 for it the next semester.
Right.
And then I had to take elective classes that had nothing to do with the fuck I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I realized, this is a scam.
Yeah.
I'm too smart not to suck my own dick, but I'm like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
So I figured out how to find a way. I didn't exactly know what I was going to do, but it ended up working out well.
So how much time passed between stopping with the schooling and picking up tattoo?
2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And during that 2 years, were you just kind of finding your way?
I don't even know what I was doing when I reflect on it. I mean, I was working at a call center. I worked at a Victoria's Secret warehouse. It was, again, when I reflect back on it, it's like, holy fuck. I could have definitely been stuck being a manager or at somewhere, some call center or something like that.
So what brought you to pick up the needle and start doing work?
Well, when I got my first tattoo, I was kind of addicted, but not in I'm going to go get all the tattoos. It was just like, holy shit, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And there's people making a living off of
drawing. Yeah.
Doing cool stuff.
One of the very few remaining ways that you can make a living in the art world.
Yeah.
I mean, without that many kind of corporate hands in between you and the work that you're putting out.
That's actually a problem. I don't know if you would consider it a problem or just part of the natural process of certain businesses, but it's kind of an issue now because before tattooers were very, they were like bikers. They were like outlaws. They were the, counterculture. So if anybody tried to approach the business or the industry and say, I want to, open a tattoo shop, but I don't tattoo or do anything like that, you'd get your shit beat in or you'd get your place burned down.
Yeah.
Because that's how it was.
Right.
But now you're starting to see a lot more of that corporate aspect sneak in because of money. Because of money.
I mean, I would imagine in the 60s, what's the most that someone spent on a tattoo? Like $100?
Yeah, $100.
I mean, now you have people getting work done that's like
thousands, TV
tens
shows,
of thousands,
and brands, and you have right now. I mean, maybe 2 years ago, there's this huge, what would you call it? Like a firm actually started buying up all the tattoo suppliers.
Right.
So all the tattoo suppliers are actually owned by like two companies. You're
talking about the ink, the needles, all that stuff.
Yeah. Where before it was like individually owned, and it was like, one tattooer owns this company, but now it's like,
are they fudging with the cost of things? Like, is the cost going up, or have they kept it pretty regulated?
So the cost is pretty much the same because also now you're seeing supplies being sold on Amazon. Yeah. I don't know if I should even be saying this, but yeah, tattoo supplies is like where
all three people that are listening to us are going to run right out by their supplies. I'm joking.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to, you'll figure it out. It doesn't work out to try and do it yourself.
you got the tattoo. It sparked an interest in you to kind of learn more about it. Was there a point where you said, this is what I'm going to do?
Yes.
Or was it first just kind of fucking around, working on yourself and your friends? Or how did that work out?
So I have, when I latch onto something, I really go all the way.
I can tell that.
When I decided that I wanted to tattoo, I realized like I need to get good at this. If I want to make any kind of money or living off of this, I have to get good at it.
Right.
So I took an apprenticeship, and I was I guess you could call it scratching out of my house at the time. But I quickly realized like this wasn't the way that I could do it, because there was a certain level that I wanted to be at.
Well, I would imagine too, and this has only occurred to me recently, that you have to be very careful when you're starting out, because everything you put out there is now your calling card. And if you leave a wake of shit work on people, doesn't matter how good you get. If there's 100 people that have shitty ass tattoos on them walking around saying, yeah, such and such gave that to me. I mean, you got to be very kind of careful in that regard.
Yeah. And
that would be my guess. Is that true?
Yeah, it's permanent. A little bit. It's definitely true. If you want to operate at a high level of tattooing, you want to make sure that every tattoo you try to execute it as best as you can. And even then, it's art.
Yeah.
It's not science, right? And everyone has a certain vision. So sometimes, yes, you do fall short of what people expect, but as long as you try hard,
right,
you'll be okay. And that's where I kind of succeeded in my own life, where I would try. And I knew that I wanted to be good.
Now, did you figure out early on kind of what style you wanted to do?
I still don't know.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I mean, and that's really a thing. I mean, there's,
100%.
I mean, there's obviously like black and white or whatever you call that.
Yeah, black and gray.
Black and gray. Then there's color. There's a lot of Asian stuff. There's this kind of like sailory, old time, like Ed Hardy. Traditional. Yeah. Now, someone, it's going to kill me because I can't remember what the name of it is. It was called something polka.
Trash polka?
Trash polka.
Yeah, that came and went, Just like people who specialize in watercolor tattooing, there is some, but it's not
kind of a flash in the pan.
Yeah, it's not even well respected. Like if you could pull off a good traditional tattoo, that's awesome. And you'll probably be busy. But if you pull off a good trash polka tattoo, no one really cares.
Well, it's very niche. So unless someone specifically wants that.
Yeah. And you see that a lot right now in tattooing. There's this fad. I don't even know if you would call it a fad, but like just doing simple outlines and like
geometric shapes and that kind of thing.
Dot work.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll last. I know people make careers or build careers out of it, but the problem why I'm not fixated on a style is because I'm trying to be adaptive. I'm trying to and discover myself. I mean, honestly, I didn't do black and gray 3 years ago. I had no idea how.
Right.
But I was forced to when I came to Red Letter One because there was a demand for it. No one in the studio had done just that.
Right. Is that more difficult than color or?
No. Black and gray, sometimes other tattooers look down on it because you're just replicating someone else's work, whether it's a Michelangelo painting or a statue of David or a picture of an eagle. You're just replicating what you're seeing.
Right.
So some tattooers look down on it, but to me, it's kind of like what people who tattoo Japanese do. It's like you're just doing what's already been figured out hundreds of years ago.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, I guess there's arguments on both sides of everything.
Totally.
How is the community of tattoo artists? Is it welcoming, not welcoming? Is it dog eat dog?
So it used to be not welcoming, again, because it stemmed from real macho, real biker, real outlaw. But now you're seeing a lot of art students, people who would have gone to be, just painters, just graphic artists, realizing, oh man, tattooing's awesome. I can make a lot of money off of it. So they go into that. And that changes the industry where now people are like, there's no gatekeepers.
Right.
It's just, hey, if you're good, you're good.
Right.
And yes, there are people who don't like that, but hey, that's the times,
Right. Well, yeah, you kind of adapt or die, I guess is kind of how that works. So when you were in Miami, how did you get on the radar with the guys at Red Letter One? Was it like a show or are they just mutual friends or?
I got a tattoo by one of the dudes from there. He works at Amulet now, which is another great shop, but that's in St. Pete. His name was Nick Stiegel.
Okay.
So I drove up from South Florida to get tattooed by Nick. I mean, I was not very good, but I was, introduced myself. I was very friendly and eager to learn. And I just shipped up a painting saying like, thanks for having me at your studio, at your shop.
That's badass. That's
can't
sweet.
wait,
Yeah.
and I don't know the story. I guess I was on their radar, and then they just asked me for a guest spot, and they just wanted someone that would be willing to learn and willing to, be in an environment with great artists, and they had a spot to fill also. So
Well, I don't know how they are now, but I remember when I first became aware of them. I mean, they were like a 6-month waiting list. It was, so they had.
I'm sure some
Depending on what you're
I'm
wanting
sure.
to do.
Yeah, each artist works as an individual,
Right.
So I'm sure. Yeah, David Brule must have a 6 months for sure at least.
Well, so I guess my point is they probably are having to turn away a lot of work.
Correct.
And so it makes more sense for them to have guest artists come up.
Yeah.
And keep it in house.
Yeah, hire a new guy
out.
and mold them to something. And
right.
Unfortunately, the pandemic had me break away from them, and I also had different visions for my life because, again, I could see where I was going. Right, I was already working with the best.
Right,
and I just knew that I don't want to just do this until I die.
That's not going to define you.
Yeah, no, I'm not a tattooer.
Right,
I'm not. That's why I don't even have like a style either, because you're in a box now.
Sure.
That's what you are.
You don't want to be defined. You're kind of not shirking, but kind of avoiding definition.
I actually kind of wish I had definition.
Oh, you want some definition?
Yeah, because definition is an anchor. You know, like what you are, but I feel like instead of like a number, right? I feel like humans are more like an ongoing algorithm, right? We're not the number 3. We're more like the function pi.
Yeah,
it's still going, like
still calculating,
still being discovered.
Right,
what that next number is.
Right. Well, that's an interesting segue. When I stopped by today to talk with you, how do we get on the topic of? I'm trying to think how we got there so quickly.
We were listening to Joshua Bach.
Yeah, but we started talking about Ray Kurzweil. We started talking about the singularity. You were telling me about that guy who wrote like Homo Sapien. And then the one about the Great Correction, or what was? Yeah,
that's actually a weird book for weird times. It's The Great Reset by Klaus Schwab.
Yeah. And we're talking about Black Swan and all that other
Nassim
stuff.
Taleb.
So have you always been a reader or?
Dude, insanely. Yeah. Like I was in 7th grade and I would work during the summer and I would spend all of my money on on polo shirts and books.
Nice.
Like
I dig it.
It's like Plato.
Yeah.
Tale of Two Cities.
Sure.
John Milton's Paradise Lost. In 8th grade.
But it seems as though you're reading, and you've mentioned this as kind of an endeavor or a journey on your point, has become more directed in kind of a certain study almost.
Yeah.
And how did you decide that was going to be kind of where you're refocusing your efforts?
Psychedelics.
Really?
100%.
Mushrooms, LSD, acid. Yeah.
Mushrooms.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me, because I'm very naive in that regard. Is it like microdosing, or is it all the way in? And
so I've never been into like smoking weed.
Okay.
I was very late to the game, and my body just didn't agree with it. No matter I lived part of the time when I was homeless. I lived with a drug dealer.
Sure.
And he's like, dude, you just got to try different strains. Nothing worked.
Yeah.
I would just become paranoid or even hallucinate. And then a couple years after, actually specifically before moving to Tampa, I did my first mushroom trip.
Okay.
And it just spun my world around. Where before I was like a hardcore asshole of like atheist. Like I know what the fuck's going on. Like, I know about reality. I'll tell you about it. And it's not what you think. And then I did mushrooms and it was, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
I don't know anything, and
so that sticks with you even when you're on the other side of it.
Yeah.
So you can bring back some wisdom or knowledge.
I actively did it for that reason, which was like, I'm not trying to party.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to see pretty colors. I'm trying to use this as a tool to see if I could better my life, and if I could bring something back, the more the better. And I brought a lot back.
That's great.
And
was it scary?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's still scary.
Is there like like a process? Like, do you need a spotter? Do you need like a babysitter? You need someone to make sure you're running around in the parking lot naked, shitting on hoods of cars or whatever.
There's a proper way to do it. I actually don't even recommend it for some people.
Yeah.
And it's a realization that I came up with. I don't even know if you want to call it come up with, but in the last week.
Okay.
Which was, it's almost like an allegory to the story of the Garden of Eden.
Okay.
Where the snake says to Eve, participate of the fruit and your eyes will open, you shall be as gods, knowing good from evil. So imagine a psychedelic trip being this thing that is supposed to show you what reality is. It's supposed to open your eyes. And you do it. It's not enlightening. It is, but it's not like a good kind of enlightening. It's an existential crisis.
I wish you didn't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like you're peering behind the stage and seeing the plumbing work.
Right.
And that's exactly what psychedelics does to some people. Some people don't recover, but it's almost like ignorance is bliss.
Sure.
Where my life was going in a certain way where it's like, I'm going to be the best tattooer in the world. And this is all I'm going to do. And everyone's going to know my name and I'm going to make a lot of money. And then I did psychedelics. And then it was like, you're doing it all wrong.
Right.
You think it's money. You think it's fame.
Well, you mentioned that earlier today, not to cut you off, but you said something to the effect of, I really don't care about money. Was that a conclusion that you arrived at because of this?
Money is just a mechanism of life, right? So like sex, it's just a mechanism for your information to move into the future. Same thing with money. Money is just a useful tool that gets our genes, right, into the future. That's why people buy Ferraris. That's why people go to school. They want to impress other people because that means
procreation.
A more open pool of choices for procreation, right? If you have more zeros in the bank accounts, that's proof that
you're valuable.
That you can take care of a child or that you're good stock, let's say. Humans don't have peacock feathers, but we have bank accounts.
Right.
But once you realized that it's just a mechanism and you gain a little bit more control of that and you realize like that's not it. Whatever the answer is, I mean, I still don't know what the answer is to life, but it's...
Well, trying to exist outside of it can prove difficult because the world is conspiring against you, in every fashion. I mean, as much as you want to consider, and I'm not saying you, I'm speaking generally, want to consider money as a metric, the gas station still wants you to give them $10 to
100%.
It's kind of this hard thing. It's like you kind of got to play ball, but you can't.
It's useful. It is useful. Just like being in shape is useful to life,
There's a joke that Patton Oswalt says that hits home with me. He's like, stopping doing cocaine is easy. Just don't do cocaine anymore. You can't stop eating. You have to modulate your eating. You can't just stop putting food in your mouth. So it's always going to be right there. It's always got to be something that you put in your body, but it's the difference between, watching your calories and just eating cake every night. So, with money and with a lot of these things, whether it's government, whether it's, legislature, whether it's faith, whether it's medicine, any of these things that in their most severe form can be evil. Also, the complete absence of these things could be oblivion as well. So it's kind of finding that middle path.
Yes,
that's it's tough to maintain. You're walking a tightrope.
That's actually what the symbol on my face is.
Okay.
It's like I don't know what you want to call it, my logo, a sigil, whatever. Yeah. And it's pretty much, and it ties back to my psychedelic trip, which was, it's a superposition. You have to be able to maintain two ideas at once.
Two opposing ideas at once?
And guide your life through that.
Right.
And not that it's set in stone, but it's a balancing act.
Right. Very tough to do. I mean, this is a running discussion with me and my therapist about, I can never just watch what I eat. Either I'm just a glutton putting everything in my face that is before me, or it's like carrying around the jug of water and, eating 500 calories. It's like, why can't you just have one Monster Energy drink instead of 2 every day? Or why can't you just drink wine 2 nights a week instead of 4 nights a week?
It's hard. We're very, complicated organism. And I think that's like the problem with life that, we try and find what feels good, the path of least resistance.
Right.
But I think humans are special in that we can reflect on those things and actually have choice, right? I think humans are special because for the first time in the universe, let's say, as far as we know, the universe itself, us, right, being the universe, looking through our eyes, it doesn't have to be that way.
And I also wonder what role the idea of morals and ethics play.
Just useful tools.
Well, sure, but there's not another organism out there that we're aware of that can conceptualize morals or ethics, right?
Right, yes.
So our physical inclination is to have as much sex as we can possibly have.
Yeah.
But, morals, religious faith, ethics, these sort of things kind of run contrary to that. In some regards, I'm speaking in a very broad and loose sense, but what I'm saying is we have constructed something that kind of governs us. When I say govern, I mean like a governor on a go-kart that doesn't let you go over, kind of pulls us back from the edge, as it were.
Because it works. I mean, that's why we have morals and ethics, because they work, right? Right. Like claws on a cat, they still have them because they're effective tools for that organism.
Right.
So for human beings, we realize that if we work together, if we are in alignment with each other when it comes to where we want to go or be in life, it's useful.
Right.
You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be true. For example, you could tell your child.
Well, this is faith. This is Santa Claus. This is
totally
being a parent.
But right, like being a parent, you tell your kid, hey, don't get close to the porcupine because the porcupine can throw its quills.
Yeah.
Now the question is, do porcupines really throw quills?
Right.
They don't.
Right.
But it's a useful tool so that your child doesn't get hurt.
Or does daddy really have my daughter's teacher's cell phone number in his phone? Or does she just think that he does when he gets her on the phone whenever she's not listening?
Yeah.
Well, sure. So welcome to religion, and welcome to looking behind the piece to see what the workings are behind it. I mean, when I lost my faith, I wanted so badly to have it again, to this day, because having a faith, a religious faith, a faith in an afterlife, a faith in an eternal reward, a faith in justice, a faith in all these things make it easier to go to sleep at night and wake up in the morning. When you start to realize that good is not rewarded, evil's not punished, it's very much chaotic. And when you're gone, I mean, you can get into like energy and matter and that kind of stuff. But you're not going up to the pearly gates and,
I have my own interpretations of what the paradise or heaven
I would love to hear
mean.
You're willing to share it?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
It's just a little complicated. You have to build up.
I love this. This is the most Joe Rogan-y episode I've ever had.
You have to build up to it, you know. But let's say like, okay, just hypothetically speaking, we're going to get really far out there, but these are all things that could be possible. Not in our lifetime, probably not in the next 100 years, but is there a logical argument to say that there is a possibility of this being true? Yes. Okay. Let's say, for example, you look at the first commandment that God told Adam and Eve. He said, be fruitful and multiply. Okay. You take that as what is this thing saying? And it's saying, get your information into the future, right? Keep going. You are here because you are the end product of an equation that hasn't stopped, which was the very first cell dividing, right? Me and you were just different iterations of that same hyperorganism called life, the first cell. If that can keep going, if humans don't fuck up, if you have a child and your child has a child and they make it all the way up to where humans get this godlike potential, which ties into that book Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harari.
I'm going to ask you to give me a bibliography of this episode because I want all these titles and authors.
Your information is literally reaching a godlike status. Your children, whatever, even if we're not
from our perspective.
From our perspective, correct. Now, we look at DNA and we say, oh, that's just random information. That's just a mess. We know that 4% of it equates to what human beings look like. The rest is just, but it's like, no. That could be real information. Like
that we just can't read yet.
That we don't understand yet, right? Like entropy, like you look at a gas and it's like, I have no idea what that says. It's a mess. It's like, well, because you don't have the technology to interpret that information.
It's like me looking at Spanish or...
So now you get to a point in time when humans have this ability, not just to terraform, right? Mm-hmm. Not just to terraform planets. That's like coming in the next 200, 300 years. Now I'm talking 1,000 years from now. And you made it. Your information, your genes have made it, right? It's a different version of you, obviously, because it's mixed with your partner or whatever, however you do it.
You're immortal, yeah.
We'll get to a point, again, if we don't fuck up, if we figure out what we're doing, well, we'll be able to do anything and literally fuck with the laws of physics and say they don't have to be this way. Right? Look at humans, what we do now, right? We are omnivorous animals, but you have a certain set of humans that are able to look at the status quo and say, I don't want to eat other animals, right? You've reached a level of abstraction and thought where you can say, I can do this better. I can figure this out better. So you scale that upwards a couple thousand years and you realize humans might literally one day have the power to create paradise.
Right.
And how easy would it be to say, let's look at genes or let's look at that information and let's spin
All
Josh.
I can think about right now is Prometheus while you're talking about it.
let's spin Josh back up.
Sure.
It would take nothing for a hyper-intelligence in the future to resurrect you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, why would they do that? Well, they could literally look back and say, it's almost like, the Egyptian story with Book of the Dead. If you were good or evil, right? Or like the scales.
The ratios, yeah.
Right.
If you can.
What did Joshua do to make sure that humanity survived?
Was he a net positive or a net negative?
Exactly. Yeah. And it would be so easy for that type of civilization to fucking bring you back up, man, to resurrect you.
Well, you've obviously done a lot more reading and work in this. I'm very good at buying books and reading the first couple chapters. It's the finishing them and assimilating them into some sort of worldview where I waver. But that we were talking about Kurzweil and the singularity, and that timeline is even closer up as far as the ability. We were talking today about neural links and kind of downloading your whatever your makes up your information
totally
into a cloud or into a hard drive or into a network, and some synthetic version of yourself kind of existing, not synthetic, some, I don't know what the word would be, but virtual equivalent of yourself. And I think it was Elon Musk. I was listening to him talk. I think it was on Rogan. He was talking about how people's ghosts live on in the net and social media already. Like you'll get people poking you from their Facebook page and they've been dead, or people's photos or anniversaries. Yes. Like they're present in a way in your life that previous generations, the dead, weren't present in your life. And so again, if we're always extrapolating into the future, like if it's not static, it's going to be different. And is it going to be better? Is it going to be more intense or whatever? It's kind of the thing that you're talking about.
Yes, but I'm talking about if things go well.
Well, no, 100%. Yeah, I mean,
because honestly, what could also happen, let's say, for example,
burn the fucking ground, and
for what could also happen, for example, is that you are being sucked into a digital world, right? A literal digital prison where who you are could be trapped in the cloud. Imagine being trapped in the cloud, right? Literally, there's so many data points over time that have been whether it's your fucking fridge, what you're eating, your smartwatch, right? Which is like calculating everything you're doing,
right?
What your preferences are in, porn, right? All that's being logged.
Right.
Imagine now being in the cloud and not being able to die.
Right.
That's also a possibility.
Sure.
That's a scary. Yeah. That's definitely not paradise.
There was another thing that I do besides not finishing books is I love to like misunderstand and bastardize quotes. But there's one, and it's something like, on a long enough arc, the human nature or the human trajectory trends in a positive direction. Like if you look at anything in a very finite period of time, you could say like, the past 4 years have been diabolically horrible. Is this where we're headed? But if you take it to 50 years, you take it to 100 years.
Yeah.
The trend is
I think that's Steven Pinker's book, Enlightenment Now, which talks about that over time, if you were able to map out the history of the species, you'll see that we're getting better, right? Illiteracy is going down. More people's rights are being recognized. Yeah. People are living longer, for sure. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's always going to be the case.
Sure.
And that's where I think it's like the dangerous part, where it's like you can say, trust the process, it's all going to be fine. But it's like, no. You have to be vigilant. You have to be
It's two opposing.
Yes, currently always tipping the scales, making sure that there's a balance.
Right.
Because again, we've been saying as human beings that technology will solve all our problems for hundreds of years.
Yeah. And here we are.
We're the fucking most stressed out that our species has ever been.
Right.
You know?
Well, yeah, your studies in this regard are so much deeper and far-reaching than mine. So I even feel embarrassed to make references. But there's that Social Dilemma movie that's out on Netflix.
I haven't seen it, but I did hear I have known about Tristan Harris. For a while.
Well, it talks about kind of again a similar thing. Technology can both be, the best of us and the worst of us, and but it's talking about how, AI and all these different things, like, depending on where you live in the world, when you search Google or YouTube, you're going to get different results, and how all these companies, their main goal is to keep your eyes on a screen.
Right.
Because
and sorry.
No, you're good. People want to listen to you, not me.
No, I'm sorry. I just get real passionate.
No, I love it. I love it.
Again, because it's not like I'm trying to teach anyone anything. For me, speaking about it lets me reflect.
Welcome to podcasts, which, by the way, we're going to talk about your podcast in a minute. But this is one of the main reasons I do it. It's like free therapy to me.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I like reflecting on my own ideas and thoughts. So
where were we just going? We're talking about the Social Dilemma. We're talking about keeping eyes on screens, and that kind of struck a nerve with you.
Yeah, I don't know if it's good.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's good because human beings have always we think we know what we're doing. We never fucking do. Ever.
Right.
We never do. And it's the problem that you find now in society. It's for people to know it's November in 2020. And it's this failure of trust in experts because we really don't know what we're doing. Right. So now you have people who control these algorithms, right? And that's part of the thing about Social Dilemma, where they could sell you the idea that this is going to benefit your life, or it's going to be so fucking cool, or blah, blah, blah. But they don't care what it's doing to our children, right? They don't care what it's doing to our attention span. They don't care that people are forgetting how to even read books, right? And now they have audio. They don't care, right? Because it's not their job to care. They have a legal obligation to their shareholders to increase their bottom line. So in a way, can technology be great? Yes. Do humans know what to do with that technology? It's usually never. Right. We have these ideas that we're doing things for the greater good. For example, getting rid of wolves in Yellowstone. We got to get rid of the wolves in Yellowstone because they're destroying the ecosystem. They're hunting all these deer and elk and Bambi and blah, blah, blah. Little do we know that taking that variable out of the system causes ecological collapse.
Sure, they're eating certain plants and shitting elsewhere and fertilizing and killing off vermin and it's all part of a big harmony. It's a big jazz.
And humans are too short-sighted. We see things in the now rather than the giant evolving equation that is the universe, where we like to interject and say, no, this is how it should be, not knowing what the ramifications are down the road.
That reminds me of something you were saying to me earlier about modeling what was intelligence and what was wisdom or something like that.
Right.
So was it intelligence was being able to model what you see, and wisdom was to be able to use it prospectively to make decisions, or was some version of that you were saying? Right.
Okay. So imagine that life, right? Our life is like a tree, right? And every branching of the tree is a decision, right? Now, your ability to jump through from one branch to the other, let's say different nodes, is intelligence.
Okay.
Right? Being able to, I know what I have to do to get over there, meet that goal, right? I have to study now, remember this so that I can get a law degree, right? But wisdom is choosing what the endpoint of that branch is. And we don't know how to do that, right? Very intelligent people could move in between branches fluently. Less intelligent people, or let's say, they're just going along.
They're scratching an itch.
Yeah, they're going along with the flow. They're going with the path.
They got a heart on. They're going to do something about it. They're hungry. They're going to do something about it. They got shit. They're going to do
but
something.
The intelligent person can say, if I don't cheat on my wife at the strip club today,
I'll probably put healthier children out in the world.
And I'll reach. I won't have to pay for a divorce. I won't have to, I'll have a more harmonious life. Maybe. Again, it's not guaranteed, right? Because your wife also has to not cheat or whatever. Yeah. But it's the end point that we can envision. It actually has to do with computation. The fact that We don't know what the end result is, right? Everything is evolving and changing. And for you to be able to know what the end result is, you would have to literally be God, literally, in a real literal sense. And that's where humans lack the wisdom. We see our lives in these small slices of time called the now, but it's very hard. I mean, look at where we are this year. No one predicted this. I mean, no one saw this coming.
Right. Who are some of your thinkers that you kind of subscribe to, return to, kind of
right now?
Yeah, I'm sure it's evolving.
Yes. Right now it's Joshua Bach.
Okay.
He's a professor of cognitive science. He's working right now. I'm pretty sure he's working with Max Tegmark at the, I think it's like Institute of Artificial Intelligence, and they work on like ethics and morals. Like, okay, if we're going to build these things, how can we model them to be
We need
good?
A Bill of Rights and a Constitution to follow that.
Yeah, I mean, almost. But yeah, so it's kind of like, okay, if these things are coming down the road and they're going to be way more intelligent than human beings, how can we make sure that they keep our interest in mind?
Right.
When they are literally making decisions that are going to not only influence our planet, right? That's some short-sighted human shit. No. This is going to influence the galaxy,
right,
the universe, because these beings, right, they are not artificial intelligence. They will be intelligence just in a different substrate. Their decisions will have ramifications that influence the galaxy, the universe, right? Like faster than light travel might be figured out an hour after a real artificial intelligence is turned on.
Right.
At that point, the whole...
That's that black swan thing, that speeding up of progress over, just it's not a fluke, but kind of a, whatever the case may be. What was the book that he wrote?
He doesn't have many books.
Okay.
But
okay. So that's one of them you talked to me about.
Yeah.
And we now tell me the other one about the history of human beings and then what we would be capable in the future. Who's
that's Yuval Noah Harari.
Okay.
He has 3 books, Lessons in the 21st Century, Sapiens, very popular book, but it's his sequel to Sapiens called Homo Deus that is like, Jesus fuck. It literally just outlines where we could potentially be going. And Max Tegmark, another person, talks about it too, where human beings will have almost like a universal responsibility to not fuck up,
Mm-hmm.
and it's in that book, Homo Deus, where it's like, listen,
well, not to steal from Spider-Man, but a greater responsibility, or greater power comes greater responsibility.
And so the powers that we're going to discover, I mean, look what we did with atomic power, right? And that was one thing. Imagine if next week we discover, wormhole technology or faster than light tech, or how to take advantage of gravity waves, and yet we're still fucking killing over each other over our color of our skin.
Right.
That's not a good thing.
Not a good mixture,
No, not a good thing at all.
So where does this all go for you, to the extent that you can predict it? I mean, this is kind of what you're putting your effort and your time into. Are you gonna, you kind of buck the education trend as far as grabbing degrees. How do you see you putting this into use in your life?
Well, luckily, there's a lot of information out there, YouTube, books, where you can learn a lot. My plan is to just first pick a direction, right? I'm not...
You're picking your major. You got to
Yeah, almost. But it's like, okay, if your field of study doesn't even exist yet, what's the direction? I mean, look at string theory, right? Yeah. We thought for 40, 50 years, string theory would be the answer to the universe. Like, we're going to figure it out. We're right there. And we turned on the Large Hadron Collider, and string theory looks like bullshit, right? It looks like the smartest people in the world have been wasting their time on one direction of where we're going to take physics, and it didn't pan out. And no one wants to admit that, right? These people who have tenure, who have written books, who have grants and labs, don't want to admit that physics has failed for the last 40, 50 years. Right. So now my thing is like, okay, I don't know what I want to do. I'm not that smart. I just can retain information, and I'm curious. So where is it that I want to go? And I think it has to do with computation. So I'm reading all the books that I can.
Define computation. I mean, I know what the word computation means, but in the context that you're using it.
It's just
gathering data and using it to draw conclusions.
It's like a churning of information.
Okay.
So it's the processing of information, right? Where people before thought that the universe was mathematics, right? That the universe is numbers. No. The universe is computation. Human beings are computation, right? We're intaking energy, we're churning it up, and we're making things, we're taking shits, we're making babies. That's the computation. So like that. So the idea would be learn as much as I can about computation up until the point where I hit a wall where I can't understand anymore, and either find mentors, sign up for some free online classes, which MIT has plenty of, and then go from there.
Just keep going.
Yeah, and maybe not even do anything of it. You
yeah.
know? But I just have this like obsession about knowing what the fuck is going on.
Well, it's pretty awesome. I mean, I really appreciated the conversation today. And another thing that we discussed was that you actually have your own podcast.
I would like to. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of, and it's not, I would say infancy stages, but you had kind of started the concept, started the steps forward, and then with COVID and probably the change in where you're doing business, it kind of. But can you talk about? I mean, this would be a great little launching pad for that show. So what's it called? It's
called The Network.
Okay, and what's the concept behind it?
Well, I've been pretty lucky in my life to find myself where I am, where I have the luxury of being able to choose another career path.
Right.
And I think people don't realize that they are special, that they can literally control their lives, and that there is a way to really, really create reality for yourself, right? Human beings have this godlike ability to abstract ideas and do things with them, whether it's with our own lives or real physical things like music or painting. And the podcast would probably be more of like inspiration.
I love it. You have a very positive part of you, which I enjoy. I think it's a realist part of you, but you have the bravery or the balls to consider that things might be better, or that people can be better, or that we can be better, or
they have to be.
Sure,
they have to.
Yeah. Well, this will sound condescending, and I don't mean it to be, but for someone in their late 20s to not be all doom and gloom and like this is all fucked up and bullshit. Yeah, that's a very easy default to fall into.
And you know what? That's one of the problems that I see with today's society, that people use that as a currency. People use this idea of like the system's against me, or the world's against me, or I had shitty parents. And it's like, dude, I'm sorry, but the universe doesn't fucking care.
Yeah.
Get up, get out there. And that's part of why the network or this podcast will exist. It's because sometimes you do need a helping hand. Sometimes you do need inspiration.
Little nudge. Yeah.
I even, with the launch of this podcast, I'm also, if things go well with COVID and my new studio, I want to create like a fund or a grant, right? Let's say someone is a line cook at, one of these restaurants in South Tampa, and they've always wanted to start a podcast. Well, my goal would be to like, hey, I'm going to have, here's $2,000. And just, here's $500 and show me how you're going to change your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one of the things that I want to do, because I wish someone would have done it for me, bought my first tattoo machines, or even sponsored that first year of not working to do my apprenticeship. Right.
Because there are people out there like you who would take advantage of it and do something with it.
So I would love to meet other people who think like me, who feel like this world can go in a better direction, and that we can create it, right? That we can literally create it. That we have a say in how the world or the universe evolves. And just sparking, I don't want to say entrepreneurship, because people are going to come with their bullshit ideas about like.
Well, that's money, and you're not talking money. You're talking value of a different kind. You're talking fulfillment. You're talking kind of becoming your true self. Exploring
possibilities. Like that's what we're doing.
Your final form is that's become a phrase everybody loves using now. Your final form.
That always sounds kind of Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, kind of science. Well, it's funny. You mentioned something earlier. We're at an ending point, but I watched this movie last night called Possessor which is Brandon Cronenberg. His father's David Cronenberg, who did The Fly and all this other stuff. But there's a big part of that movie which is on data mining. And basically there's these mills just filled with people watching videos of people's life and just recording every aspect of it into some kind of greater purpose. But when you were talking about future gods being able to recreate versions of ourselves, in effect, they could recreate the receptacle of our experience and have that available to them, so that's kind of cool. Well, anyway, I digress. So, do you have a name for your shop, or is it just Walter Lopez Tattoos, or what's the?
Yeah. Well, the LLC is filed under Dark Matter Tattoos.
Okay.
But I don't have a sign on my window.
No, thank you for that. I was walking around like an idiot.
Sorry, man.
That's all right.
Yeah, for now it's just very private. I'm trying to figure out all the kinks, especially right now COVID looks like it's running rampant again, and if it get closed down again, I don't want to invest too much into marketing.
Yeah.
And if I can stay busy enough with not
brass
putting
tacks, just the rudimentary
totally
stuff.
And sometimes people use like marketing and Instagram as like crutches. Like I want to do good tattoos.
Your work.
Yeah, I want to do good tattoos.
Well, it does. I mean, you've worked on some members of my family, worked on me, and I love your stuff. You have that drive you have a pride in what you put out there. And it shows in the work that you do. If people want to find you, I know we just said I wanted my work to do it, but if someone were to want to find you, is there a Facebook page? Is there an Instagram page? Just
Instagram. Okay. It's walter.lopez.tattoos.
And you're right there on MacDill, just about a block away from Dats, if anybody's trying to geographically figure out where he's at.
Or if you want to know if you're close.
That's right. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming in today. Hopefully you'll come back. I can't wait for your podcast to be up and going if it's going to be more of this sort of thing. The one big favor that I'm going to ask of you is please send me a reading list. Because I love all the stuff that you were talking about, and I think that's great. And it's it's not something that you can just kind of walk around Borders and figure out what you should read and what you shouldn't. So in any event, thank you so much for coming on. I wish you the best of luck with your shop, with your podcast, and everything else.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. Take the opportunity. Take the opportunity. Take the opportunity. Take the opportunity.